Yeah. Okay. So again, guys, today is July 20th. What we are discussing is a lot of the different information that we have covered, mainly from the first class, and then the agenda for today. What we are going to be going over is mortgage 4Cs, which is a industry norm. We're going to cover exactly what that goes over. We're going to go over the differences between an FHA loan and a conventional loan, and what specifically are the topics that fall under that. And then we're going to go over, I believe it's about 6 or 7 very common mortgage questions that I get with daily from various clients that I really wanted to put together and have accessibility to. Okay. So what you guys are seeing here, I call it the Advancing Homeownership Data Vault. So it is years and years of various things that I have put together with different important links to my digital business card, our website, quick connect form, and things on that nature. And then one of the best part is the content that's in here. I mean, if you're a mortgage professional, probably one of the most difficult facets within this business is having just too much information kind of being spread out. So my goal with all this is to make sure that we provide this to our clients in an organized fashion. And again, whether you're looking to buy a home in 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, I always say this, is the path to home ownership is there. It is literally just a matter of, can we make sure we put you in the proper strides, whether it's credit, income, down payment assistance, and things on that nature to make it possible, right? You guys will see here, one of my favorites is the mortgage basics, going into further of down payment assistance programs, FHA loans, FHA versus conventional, which we're going to dive into extensively today, rehab loans, which happens to be one of my favorite types of loans recently, where you can purchase a home and then be able to not just buy the property, but you're also able to make the property to your liking simultaneously and give it that quote unquote facelift or that love or that really extra push that you need to in order to make the home in the best possible condition based on your preference, and I'm sure a lot of the different colleagues that are watching this, we also know that inventory is tight. This market has been a supply and demand market for quite some time, right? So some of the things that we have been doing in an effort to make sure our clients get what they're looking for and simultaneously qualify is going through rehab loans. So that'll be something that we'll briefly touch on today. We will cover that later on within the seminars as well. Okay. So kind of going into the topic that I wanted to cover today. So I have already introduced myself, but again, for some of you guys who are jumping on Facebook Live or jumping on here, my name is Abdel Khawatmi. I'm a licensed mortgage lender, Paramount Residential Mortgage Group. I'm the branch manager and team leader with the Got Mortgages team. I've been doing this since 2017. So I've certainly seen a little bit of different facets within the business. My prior employment actually was running a very successful law firm for a little over 6 years. So I've certainly seen a little bit more from various different avenues of real estate law to personal injury to a lot of different, I would say, scenarios that consumers go through on a daily basis. And one of the biggest strides, what forced me to more or less get into this industry, was I was very prone to dealing with a lot of different clients that were just not getting the necessary education and communication standpoints that they really wanted to, right? And that comes from all facets. That was whether you were working with a real estate attorney or you were working with the paralegal down to some of the realtors, things of that nature. And a lot of these consumers were coming back to us in an effort to find out what was going on with the transaction inside, which kind of prompted me to get my mortgage license, and we took it from there, right? The company that I am sponsored to is the only company I've ever been with within my career, which speaks volumes to them and the support and structures that they give me, which allows myself and team to be successful. Paramount Residential Mortgage Group, founded in 2001, awesome organization. We're consistently funding well over $15+ billion in transactions annually. And then in addition, I also own and operate a mortgage licensing school. So when I say that I have a massive passion for this, for some of you guys who are jumping on the first time, you're going to see it as we continue communicating and truly taking that extra step that we need to for our clientele to understand what are the various avenues that they need to do in order to qualify, and what are the necessary steps that you most importantly need to do even thereafter, right? So I believe it's not this session, the following session, we're going to go over what are the different strategies that is going to or has been working to get your offers accepted, right? And I'm going to work on having some of my a real estate attorney pop on during that seminar, really as an avenue to show from a legal standpoint some of the tactics that we're doing and how we're able to simultaneously stay successful. Okay. So moving on and kind of touching base on strategizing. So, you know, as the market is continuously shifting, and it's constantly been like this for quite some time, it is just so important for you as a consumer to have the opportunity to truly strategize with all the professionals in the transactions. And that constitutes down to your realtor, your lender, your attorney, down to the inspector, the appraiser, and things like that, right? This market can certainly be intimidating. This market can simultaneously present various challenges. And we're not just talking about this market. Somebody who could be watching this video 3 years from now, a lot of these strategies I have been implementing for quite some time. Have we had to kind of pivot certain things when it came to appraisals and inspections and things like that? Absolutely. But that's exactly what we did. We pivoted in an effort to make sure that our clients are being navigated and truly being educated about the mortgage process, okay? And you guys will hear me say that a lot. Education is massive in anything that we do, right? From us going through school, to simultaneously going through the mortgage process and understanding, leading to my point, what are the 4 main core components that every consumer needs to be aware of when they're purchasing a home? And I don't care if you're buying a $30,000 home or $1 million home, every single transaction falls under these 4 C's of parameters, okay? And we're going to start off with the top. We're going to start off with what I call is our capacity to repay. Now, remember, guys, you guys are going to get copies of these entire presentations. You guys are going to simultaneously also get copies of the webinar that is going to give you guys a video recording and then also an audio recording of that, okay? But anybody here wants to take a guess a little bit about what the capacity to repay kind of falls under? I know you guys got it. All right, so you guys are shy today. So I'll answer that question. Let me make sure. Can you guys all hear me? Jermaine, can you give me a thumbs up?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Capacity is your ability to repay the loan.
Very good. Yes, so your capacity is your ability to repay the loan. Income. Oh, so you guys also, if those of you guys who are new within these the Zoom webinar, there's also a chat box in here as well. So depending on if you guys are on your cell phone or your computer, there is a chat box in here. So if you guys don't have the ability to with your audio, you know, please feel free to chime in within your chat. I really do try to keep these seminars as if we're in person. I know it's tough. I know our schedules don't warrant it. As we start gearing into the fall time, actually in September, I will be shifting these to doing them Saturdays. I think it'll probably be a little bit more accommodating with people from rushing from work and stuff like that, right? But Adrian, you're right. So capacity covers specifically your ability to repay. And that's exactly what the industry standard definition is. It falls under ATR, which ATR stands for your ability to repay your loan, okay? And you guys might have heard these three verbiages or acronyms thrown around before called DTI, right? So DTI stands for our debt to income. So I always try to break it down in the simplest terms when we're talking about our capacity to repay. And really, how do we get to the point where we can truly qualify a client, right, based on income? So I'm going to try to keep this as within the simplest of possibles, right? Because every single consumer scenario is different, right? So, I get this scenarios and questions all the time where one of the main things that we look at, or we are required to look at, is a 2-year working history, right? I'm sure we've probably all heard that. A 2-year working history is what is required. Now, there's certain avenues that we're able to also pivot from, right? We're able to also take a look at if you were in school and you were full-time in school and you needed that school employment to qualify to get you to the job you need, that can actually offset your 2-year requirement. Pretty cool, right? Another thing is COVID threw a massive curveball at a lot of these regulations, because I'm going to be honest with you guys. I had situations where a client was literally about to close. We're clear to close. We're ready to rock. My assistant's calling his institution in an effort to confirm that they're still working there. And then guess what? He just got terminated or they just got laid off. And I'm like, it literally threw the entire transaction, to the point where I'm like, well, are you sure he's not there? Are you sure we're talking about the same person? But so one of the main things that kind of did allow us to shift this, though, was governing bodies such as FHA and Fannie Mae and HUD knew that there were certain things that were going on, right? So generally, whenever they became more lenient to gaps in employment, right? So FHA actually came out, which we're going to go over FHA loan. FHA stands for Federal Housing Administration Loan. It does not stand for first time home buyer, right? I always hear that, from people. An FHA loan, you don't have to be a first time home buyer to qualify for an FHA loan, right? You can actually have a conventional loan. And as long as you've lived in the home for a minimum of a year, you can actually now buy an FHA loan, believe it or not. Some people don't know that. But going back to the topic at hand now, so FHA shifted. Previously, they wouldn't allow for certain time of gaps. I believe it was 3 months. It has now shifted to 6 months, where if there was a gap of 6 months, we will sometimes have to get with the borrower and then find what's called a letter of explanation and find out what happened. What happened with your job? How did you lose it? What was your history before? Were you consistent in your work history before? You took that gap predominantly because you got laid off or your company shut down. The number of companies that I'm still till this day seeing shut down and then thereafter, right? And as long as you're essentially back at your employment and I can get that full stub and I can get your employer to confirm that you're back, we're actually in the clear. That never used to be allowed previously. Previously, the second you had a substantial gap, you literally had to wait for another 2 years, right? So that was pretty good. But again, so when we're calculating our incomes, we go back to 2-year history. So I want you guys to remember that. Another thing we will have to take a look at is, are you on a salary basis or an hourly basis? Because that does change as well, right? Because we all know there's 52 weeks in a year. So if a consumer is getting paid hypothetically $20 an hour, we take 20 times 40 times 52 divided by 12, right? So it actually gives you a little bit of an extra And listen, I'll take all the extra bread I can get from some clients, right? But so we'll go 20 times 40, which is their full work week, if they're at 40 hours, multiply that by 52 is how we are supposed to accurately do the qualifications for a consumer, okay? Now, the most common question I get when we're talking about capacity to repay and income is, well, what happens if I'm receiving overtime and bonus? Which is a great, great question. Now, we all know OT and bonus is something that is not guaranteed, right? We can all agree to it. Even if you've been getting it for 6 months, even if you've been getting it for a year, you've been getting it for like a year and a half. It starts becoming a little bit of a gray when we're kind of tipping into that, but we need to show a consistency of that type of additional income. Aside from the guaranteed hourly basis that you're receiving or salary basis that you're receiving as a consumer, okay? So we take that type of income and then we're able to qualify a consumer based on that, okay? So, so that essentially constitutes for a regular W-2 employee. He gets a paycheck, gets his stuff. Where it sometimes gets a little tricky is when we're starting to go into self-employed borrowers. That's where it becomes a little bit more of a little bit more planning, I should say, right? So when you're a self-employed borrower, right? Don't ask me why. I don't make the rules. I simply follow them, teach them, and instill them. But self-employed borrowers who are your business owners, your 1099 contractors, you know, your realtors, we take a look at your net income. So if you're a business owner, or if you're a 1099 contractor or a realtor or any of those type of employments, you generally file something called a Schedule C, which is your profit and loss from your business. So I run into so many circumstances where I'm speaking to consumers who truly think that they make $200,000 or $100,000 a year. Little do they know that from a qualification standpoint, I must take your net income. So if you're self-employed, a mortgage lender must work your qualifications off of your net income, okay? Which does, unfortunately, disqualify many clients from a qualification, okay? So that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about your capacity to repay, okay? It is, we take your debt. So let's say, and what constitutes your debt? It all falls under the following. So we take a look at what is reporting to the consumer's credit report in terms of monthly payments. So if you have a car note and it's a $50,000 car note, we don't look at the $50,000 balance. We take a look at what you're paying monthly, okay? So every single consumer, you can literally do the calculation this way. And this is actually, I'm actually, believe it or not, as much as I love technology, I'm sometimes old school when it comes to this stuff. If you have a $500 car note and you have about $200 in minimum payments on credit cards, you have $700 in monthly revolving debt, okay? And let's say your potential mortgage payment that you're looking to buy is $3,000. So you're at $3,700. Let's say you make $7,000 a year. So you're at $3,700 divided by 7,000. That gives us 52%. So I want you guys to remember these two percentages. It's very important. A conventional loan's max debt to income percentage is generally 49%, okay? So in this case, can the borrower qualify for a $3,000 mortgage? No, right? Because his debt to income is what? 52%, right? 49 is the max. 52% is where the borrower is at. He can't go conventional, right? So now the borrower is going to have two choices. He's going to have to look for a cheaper house right? So it can't be a $3,000 mortgage. It may have to be 2,800, right? So let's try that. So if we did 700 plus 2,800, 35 divided by, what did I say, 7, we're basically right there, 49%, 50%, okay? Now, aside from that, also, the borrower can have a choice to put more money down. Let's say, for example, this person, conventional, you can put as low as 5% down, sometimes 3, but let's say 5% down. 3% is usually there's income restrictions, but let's keep it simple at 5% down. So if he's putting 5% down, his monthly payment is $3,000. I'm going to go to him and I'll be like, hey man, we have to put, and I've literally had situations of like 6.8%. And if we put 6.8%, your monthly payment goes to $2,700, and now we're able to qualify. Okay. So it is, I truly, one of the benefits of why I like hosting these type of classes, or even when I teach my students who are becoming mortgage lenders, is I really want everybody to think of this business, from a full picture perspective as to how the heck does this stuff work? Where is Abdel getting these numbers, or how is he getting these qualifications, or where are we able to get these type of informations going? And once we get that understanding, then we know ourselves, well, hey man, maybe I should pay off my credit card debt, and that $200 that Abdel told me that I need to go cheaper on a house, maybe I pay my credit card debt, then I'm only stuck with a $500 car note, and now I can qualify with that $3,000 a month payment. That makes sense, guys? That's really the stuff that I really want us to truly understand from those facets of the business, okay? Now, FHA, from a capacity to repay, guys, FHA allows us to go at 56% debt to income. So you guys remember the example that I gave? Let me see if it's still there. So that example that I gave, right? The client's debt to income was 52%, right? When we gave the example. So can the borrower qualify for an FHA loan? Yes, because he's only at 52%. FHA allows us to go at 56%. Therefore, he is eligible to qualify. Sounds good? So that's everything I wanted to touch base on when it comes to the capacity to repay and the income. Does anybody have any questions? Again, you guys can unmute yourselves, or you guys can throw it in the chat. I am monitoring the questions for those of us who are on Facebook Live as well, for any questions that you guys have, okay? Okay, so moving on. So the next thing that also sometimes throws, I would say, curveballs to some clients when it comes to qualifications is your capital. When we talk about capital, we're talking about where is your money coming from. So I'm going to read the definition of where I kind of hold and then explain it to you guys. So lenders consider your readily available money and savings plus your investments. And when we talk about investments, we're talking about your stocks, your 401k, and things along that nature that you have the ability to liquidate, right? Along with properties, if you're looking to do, I can't tell you how many phone calls I get from clients who bought from me in 2017 or 2018, around one of the beginning times of when I formally got started as a lender, opening up a branch, who want to do a HELOC, or they want to do a cash out refinance, and they want to pull the money out of the amount of money that's sitting, right, quote unquote, building equity within the home, pull that money and use that money to buy their next property, right? So again, one of the massive benefits of building generational wealth and making homeownership possible is specifically this, right? Us having the ability to be able to buy a house a few years ago, come back if you're running into tight times, if you're looking to expand, if you're looking to do any of that stuff, you can literally do a HELOC, so you don't touch your first mortgage, or do a full-blown cash out refi, and now be able to use that equity that you built to purchase your next property, or take your kids on vacation, or pay off some credit card debt, or whatever the case may be. I just had a closing yesterday or 2 days ago, losing track of days. And it was probably one of my most difficult cash out refinances situation. And believe it or not, even with interest rates being a little higher, I actually do a lot of refinances right now. And just like I said when I started this call, every consumer situation is different. So even if you have a 3% interest rate or a 4% interest rates, you guys are getting killed. I know, because I'm the same, getting killed with our 20% interest rate on our credit cards, and our payments are going straight to interest, or we're paying 8-9%, especially nowadays, on a car note. So long story short, with this client, he bought his house in 2009 and bought it very cheap. Multifamily home in Jersey City. We actually ended up doing a cash out refinance. This particular borrower did not make his mortgage payment for almost 2 years. Doing it the right way, though. He went through COVID forbearance, deferment, went through a little bit of loss of employment and stuff like that. Now, when they first came to me, after 4 different mortgage lenders denied them, I said, listen, dude, this is what we need to do. I need you to make this monthly payment, get caught up, take care of this. I'm going to work on your tax sales certificates, which we got. We also obtained, when you don't pay your mortgage payment, and even if it's deferred, HUD, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development, must file a lien, right? Because you ain't paying. So there's about $65,000 in liens. There was about $6,000 in unpaid taxes. We took all of that. We had to pay every single liability, literally down to the wire. Every credit card, every car note, everything down to the wire. He was left with essentially no debt because we're paying his mortgage. We paid his car. He had a one main financial loan and about 4 other credit cards. So we paid about, I would say about $180,000 worth of debt. The client still walked away with $94,000 with a clean slate. And his rate before was, I don't even remember. I think it was a 5.5 or a 5.625. When he did the cash out refi with me, I gave him a 6.5, which is, I mean, Adrian, you could probably attest to that, which is really, really good in today's market. It was a multifamily home in Jersey City. And at the same time, his monthly payment went up just a little bit because of that difference of 5.75 to 6.5. We paid off all of his credit cards. We paid off his car. So the way I look at it is, well, listen, dude, you don't have a car payment anymore, and you don't have an installment payment anymore, and you're getting $94,000. Wouldn't it make sense for you to pay an extra $250 a month on your mortgage payment? You got no more car note. So those are some of the things that we did. But again, the importance of now capital. Now, what is this client doing? He is taking that $94,000, and now we are hunting for another multifamily home also in Hudson County, Jersey City. Okay. So the importance of capital is we all, in some way, some form, have access to capital. And if we don't have access to capital, and you're like me, and I came from nothing, we start from our income, we start from our assets, and we save up. And I always say, you do what I call, it's called the snowball method. You grab a little bit of money, a little bit of money, a little bit of money, a little bit of money. Before you know it, you've got a massive snowball, and you save it to the side. And then you go again. Each paycheck, take $20, $30, $40, and put it on the side, okay? And once you've accumulated some cash and you're ready to go, then you diversify it within various portfolio programs, which we could talk about on a different call and go through it from there, okay? So again, the importance, guys, of having access to our capital. So once again, you can tap into, and I'll move on to the next topic, you could tap into your capital, which again gives you access to your 401k, your stocks, your investments, and various types of accounts that you may have access to. Now, remember, when you're looking to tap into your 401k and things along that nature, you as a consumer want to find out how much you can actually take out from your 401k. Because if any of us who does have access to a 401k ever tried to take out money, they normally never allow you to take out everything you have in it. I think it's complete crap. But like I say, I don't make the rules, we follow them, right? But many times they only allow you to take, depending on the terms, sometimes 30% of your 401k, 41% of your 401k one time, and they penalize you. Go figure, right? But again, when it comes to our capital, we must know where the money is coming from, okay? So it's called AML, which is Anti-Money Laundering Laws, and BSA, the Bank Secrecy Act, mandates all originators, all mortgage lenders to be able to source the client's money and know where the money is coming from, okay? Because anybody here watched that show Ozarks? I don't remember how old it is now. I think it was like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. But it talked about money laundering where the Jason Bateman, I can't remember what the name of his character was, but he was essentially laundering money for the cartel. And he would open casinos and he would open simultaneously different, I think it was a bar. And Jason Bateman would get this illegal money, and it goes in 3 ways. You place the illegal money, you layer it with the clean money, and then you integrate it. So placing, layering, integrating, right? So what you want to be able to, Marty, there you go. So Marty was his name during the show. But so that is what mortgage lenders are forbidden to be able to not ask for that information. We must know where your money is coming from. So if you're receiving your money from a donor, your parents, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your friend, that's where it kind of gets gray. Usually it's supposed to be an immediate family member, or if it's FHA, your employer, and you're getting a gift, that money that is being received from your family member, we need to know where your family member got that money. And we need to generally see 60 days of bank statements to track and source that capital of where that money came from, okay? So now moving on, the fun part, the house that we're looking to buy. The next C is called collateral, right? When it comes to collateral, we need to be able to know what you're buying, how you're buying, and what specifically are you looking to purchase within that specific home type, okay? So anybody here want to take a guess of what collateral stands for? Sorry about that. What do you guys think your collateral stands for?
Assets by that people secure, like when you're trying to get a loan.
Yeah, so, well, assets falls under capital, but collateral, when we're talking about collateral in a home, we're generally talking about specifically the type of home that you are going to be buying, right? So your collateral is the specific home that you're looking to purchase and how much is it actually worth, okay? So when we're covering our collateral, we want to make sure that we know, is this home that I am going to buy worth what I'm going to buy it for? And that's where we start now coming into scenarios with the appraisal. right? So the collateral is mainly when we're taking possession of this home. So that's where now we're running into circumstances with homes that are being listed on the market for, say, $300,000 are not being sold for $300,000. They're likely being sold for $325,000, $340,000, sometimes even $350,000, believe it or not, right? So $30,000 to $40,000 to $50,000 more than the house is listed for. Now, from a lending perspective, we will never lend more than the house is worth. And I'm sure in many instances, we don't want to pay more than a house is worth, right? Just like if I'm going to buy something and, at a convenience store, that is $5 and the sticker is $5, why would I want to pay $7, right? Even if things get tight. Now, if I start seeing that at all the other convenience stores, this same bottle of water or whatever example I said is also being sold for $7, then I'm gonna buy it for $7. So that's kind of that analogy is what I want you guys to think of. That is essentially what happens within the housing market. It is a supply and demand. And right now, supply is very tight. It has been getting a lot better. Housing inventory has been appreciating. Home values are continuously appreciating, and they're going to continuously appreciate, in my opinion, for the next few years. I've shared this before. If any of you guys who know me from some of my YouTube channels, I was on a podcast 2 days ago up in Garfield, New Jersey. And I was sharing with them a article I was reading about home appreciations over the last 80 years. So appreciation basically means how much did the home values jump up, right? And when we were going over these specific numbers, we actually started to notice that home values had appreciated over the last, I believe it was, home values had appreciated, I believe it was over the last 80 years was the time frame. Over the last 80 years, home values appreciated 74 of those 80 years. So for 74 years, home values have increased at least 0.1%. Okay. And of those 6-7 years that home values depreciated, 5 of those years came after the housing bubble of 2008. So if we strip from the last 80 years, that housing bubble year, home values only depreciated twice. So if you're a consumer out there who's on the fence thinking about if purchasing a home is the right way to go, you should ask yourself that question, right? Statistically, over the last 6 months this year, home values have still appreciated 4.5% year over year, which means that home values jumped up in the teens. I believe it was anywhere from 10 to 15% in 2020. It jumped up again, almost 10 to 15% in 2021. In 2022, it jumped up anywhere from, I believe it was 8 to 12%. And then now we're still seeing, so we saw jumps of, let's say, 12, and 10. We saw jumps of almost 30% of a home if you bought it in 2018 or 2019, and we're still seeing 5% of appreciation. So this same purchaser who bought a house 2018, 2019, their house jumped up almost 35, 40% in value, okay? So for those of you guys who are thinking that home values are gonna drop, in my professional opinion, the hell do I know? I don't think they're going anywhere. They are not going to diminish. Do I think that they're going to keep increasing at such a dramatic pace? I do not, because now we run into affordability concerns. But I certainly think that when the home values you're purchasing, and this is where the trusted real estate professional simultaneously comes into play, right? Because one of the main things when I usually work with our trusted professionals, the first thing I always ask them is, how's the comps, which is the comparables, right? When a client sees a home and it's listed for $350,000 and we know that we have to come in aggressive because the line to the home was around the door, the first thing I always do is I go to the real estate agent and I say, yo, dude, how's the comps? What do we got? You know, it's a single family home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, needs a little bit of facelift, right? But it's got a separate access. It's got the garage. It's got a finished basement. It's got this. Do me a favor. Can we check out a couple homes? And more than likely, my trusted professionals already did that, right? So by the time that we're looking at it, we're on the same page where we know this same house was listed for 350, but within the last, in this market's like, when I say as to the point it needs to be, we used to look sometimes at home sales like a year ago or 6 months ago. Now we're looking at within the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, this same home that's listed for 350, let's say in Eatontown, New Jersey, where my office is at, 4 other homes sold similar for 375, or roughly one was 340, one was 380, another was 375, another was 390. I would confidently then speak with the client, speak with the real estate agent and say, hey, maybe we should come in at 375. Mr. Client, your monthly payment is going to be an extra $75 a month. You're going to bring in an extra $5,000 in cash to close because we got to cover that gap of 5% of $25,000 extra and putting you in the ability to qualify, right? So I always explain to the client, you know, I don't want you to be fearful when we're placing our offers and we're looking at these kind of things, because to be honest, if you're renting, that $2,000 a month payment, $1,800 a month rental payment is going 100% to interest. It is going 100% to your landlord's pocket. Okay. Therefore, it makes more than enough sense to offer a little bit of extra money and pay an extra $50, $60 a month, knowing that the home value is going to appraise and then some. Make sense? Okay. So now the last topic is credit, and I won't dive too much into credit because I have a whole session that we're going to talk about credit and the power and the importance of credit. We all know from when we were children that, you know, they always say cash is king, credit is king, but let's be honest, if you have a good credit score, you can confidently walk into that car dealership, right? Kick that car down and be like, I want that, right? And more than likely, when you go to buy a car, they're not asking you for proof of income, many instances, right? Usually it's like, hey, yeah, I make $200,000. They run your credit. They see anything over a 750. They're not asking you for anything. They're just gonna be like, sign on the dotted line and leave, okay? So the importance of making sure your credit score is in the perfect and the right standing is very, very important when you're purchasing a home, okay? It's just like those instances when we've all had situations when we're looking to apply for a credit card. And we know we don't need that card, but then we're like, you know, my credit's right there. I've been working on it. I'm trying to get it right. You apply for that card, and then you got that cursor that's like loading, and you're like, fingers crossed. You're like, is this going to get approved? Is this going to get approved, right? I know we've all been there. I know I have, right? So my job is to make sure it's not just from the mortgage side, but it's truly to make sure that you're in the best possible standing for all of this stuff, for your ability to repay, for your capital, you have access to the funds, where you can get access to the funds, the type of home that you're buying, and most importantly, your credit score, you know, because every single person, as I always say, has the opportunity to buy. So with our credit score, we usually take a look at your FICO score, okay, which is your Fair Isaac Corporation, your FICO. There are generally 2 different types of credit scores, and I promise not to dive too much into this because I know we have an hour. But when we talk about our credit score, we generally talk about what is the importance of us to understand when it comes to the how high can we get our score and what is holding us back. And in many instances, the things that are holding us back when we're looking to purchase a home, in almost all instances of what I see, is a client's utilization. So your utilization, which is essentially how high are you using your credit cards and how high your balances are, okay? And your balances, guys, the sweet spot is that 20 to 30% utilization consistently a month happens to be that sweet spot for everybody when you're looking to qualify exactly what it is that you're going to be put in the best standing to be able to purchase a home. Okay. You're going to get your credit in a good situation. You're going to get your credit in the right steps. And then you're also going to be able to set the proper expectations to also qualify for specific loan programs, which is going to be my segue into the next topic. Okay. If your credit score is not the best, you're not going to be able to get a conventional loan. If your credit score is sometimes even lighter than 600, sometimes even 580, you're probably not going to be able to qualify for a conventional, or I'm sorry, a FHA loan. Okay. So again, guys, to recap, capacity is our ability to repay. That is our ATR. That is our debt to income. Capital covers specifically what? Capital covers specifically our money. Is it sourceable? And do we know where the money is coming from? Okay. We have our collateral. The collateral specifics covers specifically the mortgage value. And I'm reading Mike's comment here. It is essentially an insurance policy for the lender, but it's also an insurance policy for you guys. You know, it's also an insurance policy for the client. You know, when we're purchasing a home, Mike, I'm assuming that's what you were referring to with the insurance policy. I'm reading it right now. But, you know, you're buying a house, sometimes you want to be able to. Now, listen, sometimes in certain scenarios, we are going to sometimes offer a little bit more than the home is worth, 100%. That sometimes we're the type of dictated market that we're in, right? But we want to also make sure that the type of home that you're buying is worth what you're seeing. And I'm seeing sometimes very big gaps. I mean, I did one in North Cape May. And if anybody here knows New Jersey, because I know some of us are from all over the nation, but North Cape May is further down south. I actually love going down there with my family. You know, we'll visit a couple different wineries, a couple different breweries. It's beautiful out there. The beaches out there are really nice. But man, 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, which was, you know, it's a nice home, but it wasn't like nice. It was listed for 670 grand. And let me tell you, I mean, this, like I said, it was a nice house, but it wasn't like nice, where I'm like, okay. The house underappraised by almost $40,000. The house underappraised the house appraised at 630. So you're at a $40,000 gap. Luckily, what I always do, and we'll save this for another topic within the agenda, is I always negotiate with the appraiser and I fight with them alongside both realtors. And I say, yo, dude, you didn't count the garage. You didn't count this. You didn't give me extra space for this bedroom, you know. And listen, nowadays, some of us are getting away with calling a small little closet a bedroom, right? I'm sure some of us who've been house hunting are probably seeing that. But at the same time, you know, we were able to get it negotiated. We got it as, I think we offsetted it by just a shortage of 10,000. And then the seller and the buyer met in the middle, and the client basically just overpaid by $5 grand. Okay. So you do run into certain circumstances with the collateral. It's all about the willingness for both parties to work together to make sure that we can meet the common grounds, right? And then again, recapping our credit. Our credit happens to be the most important thing within the home buying process, I would probably say, after our capacity to repay, in making sure we're paying our bills on time, we're keeping our utilization tight, and we're also making sure that we have the best possible qualifications that we need to be when it comes to getting over the minimum credit score requirements. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? You guys can put them in the chat. You guys can put them in the, or you guys can unmute yourself. Let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to move on for the sake of time because I really want to kind of go over FHA and conventional guidelines. And then I want to go over these common mortgage questions that I put together. And then I'm hoping my colleague will be able to jump on shortly and kind of discuss a little bit of insurance and his take on the market. So now I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, have heard about an FHA loan, right? FHA loan is the Federal Housing Administration loan. This stands with and gets funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Okay, so I'm going to read this. So the federal FHA loans are backed by Federal Housing Administration. It's an agency under HUD, which is the Department of Housing and Urban Development. FHA loans are insured by FHA, which basically means that the owners of your mortgage are protected against loss. So you guys are going to notice that FHA loans are a little bit easier to qualify for than a conventional loan. And most of us are going to be like, well, why the heck is that? An FHA loan, if the person, the borrower, does not pay for the mortgage, the lender is protected against the loss if the person defaults on their loan, okay? So if I'm receiving that type of guarantee or insurance or coverage, wouldn't you think I'd be okay to say, yeah, client's credit score is a little light. It's all right. If he doesn't pay, we're covered. We're protected, right? It's kind of like when we, for those of us who buy a car, and I always try to relate buying a home to buying a car because I feel like more of us have purchased a car than we've purchased a home, right? But it's kind of like something called gap insurance. If any of us have heard of gap insurance, which is usually a type of insurance that you put if your car, if you total your car, whatever it is, you kind of protect your car, and the bank is like, why? But if this person totals his car, we're protected 100%, right? So that's kind of like, if I was to put an analogy behind it, that's what I would equate it to, right? Where you're essentially the lender, the lien holder who's putting the loan is protecting them from that stuff, okay? Now, FHA loans are available predominantly for consumers with low down payment options and lower to medium credit score limits. So you can put as low as 3.5% down, and again, have a credit score as low as 580 and be able to qualify. I truly tell my clients, 580 is the guidelines, but that real true sweet spot without having to get creative with what I call contributing factors is 620. 620, guys, is that sweet spot. Whenever you go under 620, usually there's something called contributing factors or compensating factors that you must have in order to be eligible. Because an underwriter now no longer you're going to receive an automated approval. You have to go through an underwriter. And if underwriter sees that you just changed your job, you don't have that much money, and your credit score is a little light, more than likely underwriter is going to be like, I'm not a fan, right? I have had circumstances. I did one, I believe it was like 4 months ago. It was 5 months ago now. 576. The borrower had a 576 credit score, but he's been at his job for 13 years and had a good amount of money in their 401k to show as what's called reserves. So essentially to show money aside from the mortgage payment and what they need to bring to closing, they had about an extra $50,000 to $60,000 in money sitting in their bank account. And because they had that money sitting plus the length of employment, I was able to get our underwriters and get an exception. Okay. So never a dull moment, but you guys remember, credit is very, very important when we're purchasing a home, as it's going to put us in the best possible standing that we need to be to qualify. Okay. Now, when we also take a look at things, we also take a look at what I call the home type. So when you're purchasing an FHA loan, the home must be owner occupied, which means that you must be living in the home. okay? When you're purchasing a home, you are not allowed to purchase a investment property via an FHA loan. Now, do people do it? Sure. Are they committing fraud? 100%. If you're purchasing an FHA loan, you are pledging that you're going to be living in the property. You generally have 60 days to move into the property. Now, you just have to live in the home for 1 year for it to be considered owner occupied. So you must live in a home for a year and 60 days, okay? So that's very, very important because I run into those circumstances all the time with clients who want to buy an FHA loan, but they want to stay in their other home, or they want to be able to stay living at their parents or whatever. Okay. The other main thing I want you guys to remember when we talk about homes for FHA is FHA is a little bit more what I call stringent when it comes to the property condition of the specific home. Okay. So FHA is going to be more on top of the property guidelines. It's going to be more on top of the home itself in making sure there's no chip paint, cracked windows, or things along that nature that is going to really cause potential issues or even harm for the potential buyer. Okay. So that is actually one of the main reasons, guys, why a listing agent may be more willing to purchase a that is why a listing agent, sorry, I lost my train of thought. That is why a listing agent is going to be more willing to go and want to get into this type of home. Okay. They're going to be more willing. They want a client to be able to qualify, and they want the client at the same time to be able to have the eligibility to get in the home and have the eligibility to, most importantly, take care of any potential flags in the specific home type. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that? Because that is kind of super important for us to know. Yes. We're good. Okay. So now, in addition, a common question I always get all the time, when we have certain situations with mortgage insurance. So how many times we have heard mortgage insurance is something that nobody wants to pay? And now listen, don't get me wrong. If I have the opportunity to not pay mortgage insurance, I surely wouldn't want to pay it. But at the same time, if I truly understood that mortgage insurance can be as little as $100 a month, wouldn't I want to buy a house right now, even if I don't have 20% down? Okay. So that is very important. You know, Joe Biden, and I won't get political, but a lot of the things when it came to that stuff, Joe Biden was actually very favorable when it came to giving us the necessary tools and resources. And he actually went ahead and reduced the FHA limits when it came to monthly mortgage insurance. So previously, when it came to monthly mortgage insurance, we used to have to pay 0.85%. Okay. So in some instances, monthly mortgage insurance was almost as high as $200. Now, for this same circumstance, monthly mortgage insurance for a same borrower can be as low as 110, sometimes even 100. So it almost came that much cheaper. And the main goal for it was to promote this specific home type and also promote affordability for clients. Okay. So that's when we talk about mortgage insurance. Now, if you put less than 10% down when you acquire a home via an FHA loan, the house 100% must have mortgage insurance to the long length of the loan for 360 months. If you purchase if you purchase a home with an FHA loan and you put 10% down or more when you're first acquire, you'll probably refi before the 10 years. But if you don't, the mortgage insurance will drop after 11 years on its own. Okay, so good rule of thumb for us to know that. Now, in addition, before we move on to conventional, in addition, an FHA loan, you could put as low as 1.75% of what's called upfront mortgage insurance. Okay, so every person who gets an FHA loan must pay 1.75% of the loan amount as a what's called UFMIP, which is upfront mortgage insurance premium that is usually rolled into the loan. Imagine if a buyer had to pay 1.75% upfront with an FHA loan. Do you guys think that people would want to gravitate to an FHA loan? No. Because 3.5 plus 1.75 is what? 5.25, right? And what's the minimum requirement for a conventional loan? 5%. I don't know about you, but 5 is less than 5.25, right? So what does FHA do? FHA offsets that and allows the funding fee of 1.75% to get rolled into the loan. So anybody who purchases an FHA loan and always wonders, well, Abdel, I'm putting hypothetically a $350,000 home, I'm putting $20,000, but my loan amount is not $330,000, it's $337,000. What's up, dude? And more than likely, I would have explained this to them before, but I would tell them, well, yeah, man, we have the 1.75% upfront mortgage insurance, which for sake of this example, let's say it's close to 2%. 2% of about 350,000 is roughly about $7,000, right? Which is why you're at 337. Okay. So that's FHA. Now, when we dive into conventional loan is really where we get a lot of the different questions that we do it. So somebody asked about the rehab. I'll touch base on the rehab loans in a few seconds about the FHA 203K and the rehab loans. But before I do so, for regular mortgages, we're talking about a conventional loan. So we went over FHA and how usually your credit score can be as low as 580 and so on and so forth. Now, for a conventional loan, I always tell my clients you want to be at that 700 credit score mark. Okay. So there's that. And then when it came to down payment for a conventional loan, that sweet spot is 5% down. Okay. When you're looking to get qualified, 5% down happens to be the sweet spot of where you want to be at when you're looking to become eligible to qualify. Okay. You can go as low as 3% down with an area median income called the Home Ready program. But again, guys, 5% down is that rule of thumb with no income restrictions. Okay. Now, you guys remember when we talked about the home type for an FHA loan? An FHA loan, the home type was very stringent. They're going to look for every small little nick and knack, from the chip paint, cracked windows, missing handrails, and stuff like that. A conventional loan is usually not as stringent. Okay, so the home appraisal process is not as stringent, and you could purchase a home both either owner occupied or investment. Okay, so when you're purchasing a home via conventional, you could purchase it either owner occupied or you could purchase it via an investment property. Okay, so you guys remember when we talked about FHA, so FHA, we had to be predominantly in the this side. When it came to conventional, we were allowed to have an investment property driven home. Okay. Now we're going to go over PMI. So PMI is private mortgage insurance. So guys, FHA has MIP, which is a mortgage insurance premium. And then conventional has PMI. So PMI is private mortgage insurance. Okay. So private mortgage insurance is usually for anybody who is placing less than 80% down. Okay. When you're purchasing a conventional loan and you put more than 20% down or 20% down or more, there is no upfront mortgage insurance. Okay. Now, there are certainly various different tactics and tricks and tips that I can educate all of us to, and we will throughout the later sessions, okay, as to how you can actually purchase a home and not pay mortgage insurance, okay? You can actually purchase a home and say, I do actually do this all the time. A client can put 15% down and prepay their upfront mortgage insurance, okay? So they prepay it upfront and then they never have to pay about mortgage insurance ever again, okay? Does anybody have any questions before I dive into really quickly the next topic of common mortgage questions and then give the floor over to my good friend Jude? Any questions on what we just went over, guys? FHA versus conventional, any of that stuff?
Yeah, I have a question.
What's up?
This is Mike.
What's up,
Yeah,
Mike?
so if you prepay the mortgage insurance, how long are you prepaying for?
The entire length of the loan.
Okay, because
So you
that's
never-
something that Mary and I are trying to figure out if it's worth, I think a quote was like mortgage insurance was like $50. If we paid an extra $20 out of pocket, that could go straight to our principal and interest. And it only costs us $20 more a month to do that. If we put down, the 20%, it seems like our overall cost is better going toward the principal and interest rather than the mortgage insurance. So we'll have a higher monthly, but at least we're not paying, to the insurance,
You're talking my language. So two things I always look at, right? I always tell the client, forget about the interest rate. We want to take a look at your monthly payment and your cash to close. Forget about the rate, 7%, 6.5%, 6.25, whatever the case may be. So we're going to talk about our monthly payment and our cash to close. So in this case, our monthly payment, if we put less than 20% down, you're going to have mortgage insurance, right? Which is $50 or whatever the case may be. Now, another thing I want us to be mindful of is when we're purchasing an investment property, right? If you're buying a single family home, 15% down, right, is the minimum. You could put 15% down and you're going to either pay monthly mortgage insurance of, let's say, $50, or you'd be surprised, man, prepaying your monthly mortgage insurance upfront one time can be as low as like $1,000. So now you and I would do the math. Well, let's say it's $50, 50 times 12 is 600. 600 times 2 is 1,200. So do I want to take I don't know if I want to call it a gamble, but do I want to take a gamble, right, in hopes that the market turns within 2 years, which I would take that gamble. Jude, I'm sure you probably would too, right? Knowing that the interest rates are going to diminish and stuff. So I would tell you, Mike, I'd be like, hey, bro, keep your extra upfront. Let's take the extra $50 a month. And you as a consumer, remember, we're talking right now in this class about regular qualified mortgages. So there is no prepayment penalty, which means you could pay the loan off quicker. You don't have to actually keep it for 30 years, right? Even if you have that monthly mortgage insurance, I guarantee you, by the time you refi that home next year, if not sooner, you're probably already going to gain appreciation in 5% anyways. And dude, you already walked away and you didn't have to prepay your mortgage insurance upfront. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you're saying you said we don't have to prepay it, or were you saying that was a good idea?
It all
It
depends.
sounds cheaper in the long run.
Yeah, it's a case by case basis. So it's all going to come down to some clients I have no choice but to prepay it because they need to qualify and they can't have that $50 monthly payment within their payment because their debt to income gets hit, right? Another client, remember, mortgage insurance is also not going to stay for the length of the loan. It eventually subsides by itself when you reach automatically 80% of equity, right? So it's not like you get the home the first place and then you're screwed for the next 360 months. You got to pay $50 a month. No, with a conventional loan, it eventually subsides, okay, and goes away on its own. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I was wondering when it fell off, but you just answered it right there. I appreciate it.
80%, correct. Yeah. Yeah. FHA would be different, but you know, a lot of the consumers who have FHA probably don't have access to the necessary funds to prepay it in the first place, right? So that's the benefits. Now, couple different common mortgage questions. We've already kind of answered them. Again, guys, I'm hosting these seminars. They're every other Thursday. We've got a good number of people right now on Facebook Live as well that are tuning in. So make sure you guys, if you signed up for the first 2 classes, normally I'll include you moving forward for the next classes. But to make my life easier and my admin team, if you could sign up for the next class, I think the next one's August 3rd. Whenever two Thursdays from now is, yeah, August 3rd. So if you guys can please jump on, the next session that we're going to cover is actually very, very near and dear to mine. We're going to go over like closing costs, because I'm sure now that we've got our foundation, we've learned about the introductions to mortgages from the first class. We've learned today about what are the 4 things that every single mortgage lender, not just Abdel, looks at, every single mortgage lender looks at. And then we also learned about the differences between FHA and conventional. Next session, we're going to cover about closing costs. I'm sorry, did somebody have a question? I believe it was T2.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, Abdel.
Hey,
Hi,
what's
it's
going on?
Tanya. Hi. Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
So good. So I had a question. Is it possible after you secured a loan and you're paying on it to pay off the mortgage insurance? Like as one?
So it comes down to, usually some institutions voluntarily allow you to have it removed. I've heard, I've never actually personally done that. Most of the times it's always been off of a refinance. But many times if you reach out to your institution, your current institution that you have your mortgage with, and you basically say, hey, I believe I have reached the necessary equity I need to in order to have mortgage insurance be removed, they will send out an appraiser, or again, not from them, because appraisers are third party, which we'll cover later on within the sessions, but they will send a third party appraiser to check the value. And if your house's value is indeed more than 80%, from my understanding, the mortgage insurance would subside and fall off. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Perfect. You're welcome. So again, guys, in the mortgage industry, there's never a shortage of questions. I probably learn something new, as I'm sure Jude does, learn something new from the insurance side every single transaction, right? So again, the common questions we learned about today is, how do you qualify for a loan? And we went over what? We went over the 4 C's, okay? We went over our capacity to repay the loan. We went over our collateral. What type of home are we buying and is it worth it? We went over our capital, which is how much money do we have, or how much money do we need? Do we have access to that money? Is it sourceable? And can we show that to Abdel and the team? And then the last thing, and probably one of the most important ones, is our credit, right? So those are the 4 C's. We want to make sure our credit is in the perfect standing and in the best standings that we need to be, okay? Now, in the data vault, which I will share as soon as Jude begins, in the data vault, you guys are going to have access to all of these PowerPoint presentations. And then within the credit subfolder I shared for you guys are also going to have access to what I call a credit counseling subfolder of a bunch of different dispute letters and paper delete letters and mailing addresses and goodwill letters that you guys have the ability to tap into, utilize, and be able to send out on your behalf, okay? Companies are charging anywhere from $100 to probably, Jude, what would you say, $200 a month, right, Jude? For
Yeah, at
people
least.
people to have access to this stuff. You guys have access to this stuff 100% free as a massive courtesy, to be honest, because I truly want to make sure that everybody has the ability to purchase a home and understands what it is that they need to in order to be there. Okay. So we have that. And then we also take a look at how much is there to save for a down payment. We touch base. So remember, FHA, you can put as low as what? 3.5% down. Conventional, you could put as low as 5% down. In some instances, 3% down. There's just something called AMI, which is area median income. But usually the rule of thumb, I always tell people 3.5% down FHA minimum, 5% down minimum conventional. Okay. Different classes will go over more of a VA loan and a USDA loan, because those are actually one of my favorites. 0% down, for our vets who obviously served our country. And then USDA loans, those of us who want to live in the rural areas and the farmlands, you could also put 0% down. Okay. FHA condos. So one thing I want us all to know is that if we're looking to purchase a home and it's a condo, not every single condo association is FHA approved. And the best way for you guys to find out if there's any condos that are approved in your area, I put the domain link for you guys right here. So if you guys go back through the data vault and get a copy of this agenda, it's going to be right here. You click on that and you'll be able to find out. There are certain ways too, where even if the association itself is not approved, I have had success alongside with our team and alongside with some of my partners to still be able to get that unit itself approved via what's called an FHA single unit or spot approval. Okay. Asset sourcing, guys, we covered again. Where's your money coming from? Can we source it? And we must have mandatory certain documentation, such as the statements and transaction histories, in an effort to know. Discount points, we kind of sort of explained it. So Mike, just like how we were trying to figure out that break-even point with each other's in regards to paying mortgage insurance and is it worth it? I do the exact same thing for our clients when it comes to discount points, where I always tell them, listen, man, 6.5 sounds better than 7. Nobody's arguing about that. But the rate to acquire 6.5 is hypothetically $5,000. The rate to get 7 is, say, 1,000. That's a $4,000 difference. You're only saving, let's say, $100 a month. 4,000 divided by 100 or 100 divided by 4,000 is essentially 40 months. Bro, you're getting rid of this loan before 40 months. Therefore, in my professional opinion, it doesn't make sense for you to pay that upfront, right? But again, it is a case-by-case basis, because you're going to run into some clients who must get that 6.5% interest rate, right, in order to qualify, right? So it's definitely a case-by-case, but that's where I'll look at, I call it the total cost analysis, and kind of see what makes the best sense for our clients, and then we take it from there, right? What's included in our mortgage payment, we kind of covered, right? When you guys make a payment to your mortgage lender, you make one mortgage payment. You pay your PITI, which is your principal, your interest, your taxes, and your insurance, okay? Principal, interest, tax, and insurance. The lender themselves is responsible to distribute the funds accordingly towards the tax municipality and also the insurance, such as Jude and his providers, right? Closing costs, again, guys, we're going to go over in detail next session. I highly recommend you to show up to this one, because I get this question all the time. Remember, aside from your down payment, guys, you have to come up with the closing costs, and the closing costs can range. Typically in New Jersey, I usually say anywhere from $8,000 to $12,000 in total closing costs. That is your third-party closing costs, and that is your prepaids and escrows. And it's usually about half, right? About half is your closing costs. It's about $4,000 to $6,000. And about the other half is your prepaids and escrows, which, depending on the taxes, in Jersey, we all know. One of the reasons why I moved from North Jersey all the way to South Jersey was because taxes were literally almost half. my one home in Bergen County, taxes are almost like 12. And then I moved down to Ocean County and it's about 8. So that's something I always tell our clients to keep in mind when we're purchasing a home is the taxes, because you do have to prepay essentially 5 months of taxes and 5 months of insurance when you're purchasing a home on top of your 12 months of prepaid insurance. Okay. When is your first payment due? We would kind of touch base on this. I'll dive into it more in the future, but it's usually about 30 days later. So let's say hypothetically a client of mine is closing. Well, I have a client who's closing on the 25th. Jude, your insurance policy goes into effect that day, right? With Amanda Rivera, goes into effect that day. And then her mortgage payment is not due until September 1st. Okay. So she kind of, you don't really skip it because you prepay the interest. But if she closes on the 25th, her mortgage payment is September 1st. Okay. So I always tell people it's kind of important when we're timing, when we're getting out of a rental, right? When we're leaving our rental apartment, or we want to time, I want to move out. I don't want to pay double. Many times we try to time it where you're not doubling, paying your rent and paying your mortgage, right? Where we're kind of giving you the ample time where you don't have to pay a mortgage payment, but you more than likely have to pay your rent because that's your contract. So take your time moving your stuff out, right? Because you're going to have the ample time to be able to get into your apartment, right? And then that's it. All right. So I'm going to hand the floor over to my very, very good friend and very close business partner, Jude. Jude, I'll give you a little bit of a shiny intro, but Jude is a, like I said, very good friend. Most importantly, we have truly tackled many different facets within the business, and truly understanding that every single consumer's qualifications and situations and circumstances are unique. And one of the reasons why I usually gravitated, to Jude was Jude's accessibility, not just to one insurance carrier. And if anybody here who watches the news has been seeing California, Florida, Jude, you probably know other states better than me, but California and Florida have been very, very in the media over the last month or so, where State Farm, Farmers, and I don't know who the third insurance carrier actually exited their entire, I guess you want to say, eligibility, Jude, right? To ensure that particular state. So Jude happens to have access to, and Jude, I'm probably going to have the number wrong, but I would say 30 to 40 plus insurance carriers, if not more, partnerships, where it comes down to us having the ability to truly look for the best quote, the best coverage, making sure you're receiving the ample dwelling coverage and personal coverage. And Jude, you're probably a lot more well-versed in this, but you guys kind of get the drift, right? And for those of us who are looking at it online, same exact thing, right? And another added benefit to this is Jude also doesn't just do home insurance. It trickles into your car insurance. It trickles into life insurance. For those of us who are real estate professionals, commercial insurance. And then it also covers a lot of different avenues of additional facets. Okay. So without further ado, Jude, the floor is yours. I'm not walking the streets and handing mics over like you do on your Instagram channels. But the floor is yours, my friend.
Hey man, can you hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, great. So first off, Abdel, thank you very much. This is beyond impressive, and for everyone on this call, I work with quite a few lenders, and I don't really see people operating at this high of a level. So kudos to Abdel, and I say that to him personally, not even just on this call. But so So anyway, I hope you guys have been enjoying your call so far, and Abdel has been giving you a lot of really helpful information. A lot of these lenders just fast talk and just want to get a deal in that they won't explain these things to you. So I think you guys should really digest that, because that's really important. On the insurance side, it seems to be somewhat of a stressful conversation to people at times, just because their lack of knowledge. And, you know, by the time you get to the insurance phone call, you have so many things on your head and on your plate that it becomes stressful. So I would say what's alleviating by working with someone like myself, it doesn't have to be me, although I'd like to pride myself in being the best. I'm calling myself the insurance scope. What's alleviating about working with someone like myself is the relationship communication piece is top priority, and try to do a really good job at explaining everything in the most simplest fashion, so that doesn't become stressful and complex for clients. And then, as Abdel was saying, you know, representing multiple companies allows me to put my best foot forward. I don't work for an insurance company. I'm a broker, and as a broker, I work for the client. So by working for the client, that means that I go to a number of companies and look for the best results I can find for you. To piggyback off what you were saying before, Abdel, the market has changed from a year ago, from 6 months ago, from 3 months ago. It is rapidly changing, and to be frank, it's not changing for the better. However, as we know, if we pay attention to history, everything goes down, everything comes back up. So my thoughts are that, you know, things will shift around and come back up. But right now, you know, people are shopping for the best quotes. There are companies that are not even willing to quote you anymore. They're not writing business anymore. But there still are companies out there who are willing to write business. So the home insurance piece for me, you know, maybe because I do this every day, is pretty straightforward. Where are you buying the home? How big is the home? How close is it to the water? Right? And you know, how can we get you the best coverage at a very cost-effective price? You know, so we'll go to a number of different companies, and we'll share usually our 3 best options for you. All of these options that we will share will always put you in a position that in case of a total loss, which God forbid would mean, you know, if your house had burnt down to the ground and it needed to be completely rebuilt, any policy or quote that we would recommend would put that house back exactly the way it was as you bought it. I'd like to believe that the home insurance piece is pretty black and white, but I guess at this point I'd open it up to see if anyone has any questions specifically around home insurance. Is there anything that you've been thinking about and meaning to get the answer to?
You mentioned flood insurance, Jude, or a home being close to the water. If I'm somebody who's out there looking in the market, where can I usually check if I wanted to kind of find out? Because I know that's not cheap, and it plays a massive role. What's your recommendation?
Sure. I would say, you know, Abdel, and I'm sure you and we've had this conversation a few times. I would say, if you find a house and you feel like it's within 2 miles distance to the water, and I'm not asking anyone to take out their ruler, but just look at it on Google Maps and see how far it is from the water. Anything within 2 miles to the water, there's a good chance that not necessarily would be a flood zone, but would be considered coastal from the insurance perspective. As far as flood zone goes, Abdel, I'll be honest, it's kind of tough because I've seen houses where I would say there's no shot that this is a flood zone, and that they are.
And
then I also is where I said this is absolutely a flood zone, and it wasn't. And I think the reason for the disconnect on that is that FEMA, they keep changing the guidelines every year on where a home is considered to be a flood zone. Then there's elevation, So there's a few factors that are involved. But I would say to everyone on the call, at any point, you can shoot us an email and shoot us a link with the house and say, hey, Jude, would you mind see if this is in a flood zone for us? And I'd be more than happy to check with my underwriters.
Awesome. One of our colleagues mentioned, so does water include wetlands?
Wetlands like property that is considered to be
In a
built
wet,
in.
yeah.
Those are usually always flood zone considered. Even if it's wetland or like a little river or creek, it's flood zone.
Got it.
So if no one has any questions about home insurance, I'll just give you a brief overview of insurance in general. So as Abdel said, home, again, for me is black and white, but you got auto insurance. So that's something we facilitate. We represent every major company that you can think of on the auto side. And I think one of the most important parts of insurance that we a lot of the time overlook, what I find, is life insurance. And some people get a little scared off by that word, but the truth is, and again, I do all insurance, but this is the piece I'm most passionate about. Hear me out for a second. You buy a home, 300, 400, 600, 800, whatever that purchase price may be. And we insure the home, we insure our vehicles. And the largest asset that we have, which is the ability to produce income, to pay for all those things, is the thing that I find a lot of people do not insure. And really, just think about what I just said, because it's not a sales pitch. It's not like trying to force anyone into life insurance, but your ability to produce income and earn a living, whether you're a business owner or you're a W-2 employee, your ability to produce income is your most valuable asset. That's what allows you to buy a home, buy vehicles, take your family out to dinner, go on nice vacations, buy the clothes and watches, sneakers that you love. So I feel that is a big piece that is overlooked, and there's no one that is knocking on your door telling you you have to buy it. I encourage everyone on this call, if it's not something that you currently have, I advise everyone on this call to seek into it sooner than later. And I think as you purchase a home, get married, or have children, any life-changing event, I think that is what I call a trigger to look into it sooner than later. So that's my piece on life insurance. And as far as commercial insurance, I think that's something that we like to call ourselves specialists in as well. Anything restaurant, building, anything 5-unit or better is considered commercial insurance. If you buy a property that has 5 doors or more, that's considered commercial insurance, right? Restaurants, contractors, beauty salons, you name it, all fall under commercial insurance. And so, as Adele said, someone I look up to. I think Adele has a very, very good outlook, very smart guy, and he gives a lot of good information to all of you. I am more than happy to help any of you with any questions at any time. Abdel has shared my info here on the screen, and you can reach me in any of those ways. That number allows you to leave a message that comes through as a text if you don't reach us after hours. You can always send an email, and you can even go right to our website and inquire about a quote on any of the following policies. But guys, I'll leave you with this, unless anyone has any additional questions. This will be my final share to you. The reason I created the insurance code as a name was because I found most insurance companies that were brokers like myself just called themselves, for example, Romano Agency, Romano Insurance, Romano Brokerage, and I didn't think it spoke to anyone. And so we created the insurance code so that we could speak to people and take a conversation that is typically stressful and complex. And my job, as Abdel would attest to, and if anyone is on Instagram, if you follow my page, which is the Insurance Go, now, I'm not here to get followers, but if you follow my page, the Insurance Go, I think it will paint a very good picture of who Jude Romano is, why he's the Insurance Go, and where my vision is. And my vision is to really be an advocate for clients and support and work with great people like Abdel and helping you guys. So with that, Abdel, honestly, this is impressive. I wish this was available to me when I bought my first home.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think it's surrounding ourselves with the right people, with the right professionals. Doing this for so many years, and I think you see how I operate. It drives me insane when our clients are not accessible to certain information. I mean, you've seen a lot of our calls where I'm calling you up, yo, Jude, your client's in a tough spot. Bank just called me. We got to take over the file and get it done in 6-7 days. Can you shoot me over a quote real quickly? My goal truly and I never do this if I get one person who jumps on, or 20 people, or 200, or you've seen, we filled rooms, with various speakers, with Tom Ferry, with New World and stuff like that. You're a homeowner and your path to homeownership is there. And I have an outlet to be able to make sure that my side of the business gets taken care of. My partners like Jude takes care of the insurance side. You guys are ready to go. The large institutions, I mean, I'm not going to name them, but you guys can go on the news and type in Basel, BASEL, and you're going to see what are regulations that are now coming out that is kind of strong arming these bigger banks to want to say, man, screw doing the mortgage side, because they're making capital requirements so high for your local banks that are on the corner, right, that are essentially skimming the most that they can do with the least amount of communication towards the clients. And that's something that allows us the opportunity to truly stand out, right, is educating our clients, expanding our network. We just expanded, actually, literally a couple of weeks ago, into Michigan. Met a great colleague out there, had a very fun transaction, and now we're expanding our foothold to there. And I know that when there's opportunity out there, guys, an opportunity right now is out there, and opportunity is knocking. Jude, you could attest to that. Just a matter of taking advantage of every opportunity and understanding that, just as crazy as the market is, it's been like this. I mean, but there's always different facets of the craziness, right? And I always pledge, and I'm sure Jude pledges to all of us, that we vow to pivot and shift as the market shifts as well, right? And we ask everybody who is on the call to just truly put your trust in us. And I never ask for trust if it's not earned. I think trust needs to be earned, and rapport needs to be earned and given. And that's the purpose of these calls and these meetings. I've got my YouTube channel, which has got 400 plus videos, different avenues of communications that I want to give everything I know to our consumers, right? And understanding in all different avenues that this is not me. This is a team-oriented sport as well, right? We've got Jude on the insurance, Adrian, who's a rock star, who handles a lot of the real estate out in Michigan. We've got a lot of different avenues of business, and what I try to truly do is create that conveyor belt where I'm usually the guy that you never want to really talk to, because you're like, all right, how much do I got to bring to closing, right? How much of my cash is going to be gone, but I'm always going to be the person that's making sure what's going on in the transaction. Everybody is on the consistent same page, and equip us with the right professionals that are going to truly have our best interests at heart. So without further ado, you guys also have a couple cool little infographics with Jude too, of some cool, funny stuff that he's put on there. Access to other companies. What are some of the benefits of his team? What are some of the other things along that nature? And I'll tell you guys, we all say insurance is usually something that we don't want to think about, but it's generally the things that I know can make or break a transaction, right? From quotes, from qualifications, I connected actually, Jude, with a colleague of mine who chose their own insurance carrier. And then the second that they closed, the insurance carrier happened to call and say they went to the property and now the client needs a whole new roof. So I think it's just important for that. And now, of course, when you use, unfortunately, a 1-800 insurance or a salamander, or you got khakis or whatever you want to call it, right? You're going to tend to go through the robots to get to somebody. That's on the insurance side. You know, on the real estate side, same thing. You're going to go through I always try to limit names, but you're going to go through R, or you're going to go through Z, you're going to go through those websites, or do you get trusted professionals who are in person, picking up the phone, cranking away, making sure things are done, just like on my side, right? You know, we have the stadium type of lenders. We have the local mom and pop lenders whose loan officers don't even have to go through licensing. And then you have originators such as myself, and there's originators out there that are probably more well-versed on our side, right? And then we take it from there, okay? So with that being said, guys, again, I will put a copy of this meeting with the recording in here. You guys will have access to that. You will have access once again to Jude's information, the 2 PowerPoint presentations that we simultaneously covered. In 2 weeks, Thursday, we're going to go over closing costs. This happens to be one of my favorite topics because consumers are truly naive to this stuff. I mean, I think, Jermaine, your eyebrows or your eyes lit up when I mentioned $10,000 to $12,000 in closing costs, right? Because I see that consumers don't know that stuff, and it is my job to make sure. Now, I'll be honest with you. I just closed one in Michigan last week. The client's closing costs was like $6,000 or $7,000. Why? Because the property taxes are like nothing. So therefore, that percentage of prepaids is going to essentially be nothing. Right? It's going to be so de minimis, making the entire transaction that much more affordable as well. Okay. So we have that. So you guys will have access to the recording. You guys, just like the past one, you'll have access to both the video recording. You'll have access to the audio and artificial intelligence summary as well. This is probably one of my favorites that you guys can revert back to. And then a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. Again, you guys can jump on here. My contact info is here. And then the class agenda is literally split. So if you guys don't have the ability to attend the next class that we have coming up on the 3rd, we will have another one thereafter of ways that we're doing to get offers accepted in this market. And I will always continuously bring on various professionals of mine that can truly give us a different insight, not just for me, as to what's happening on the market and what are the different tools and techniques that we can all do. You know, the path to homeownership is there. So if anybody out there is feeling discouraged, or you have a family member who may necessarily want to hold off, nothing is greater than building generational wealth, guys. And I'm a firm believer in that. And my job is to extend that outlook to everybody else. And if I can reach one person, I'm a happy camper. I'll leave you guys with that. Jude, I appreciate your time, my brother.
Hey, man, listen, any opportunity to see a handsome guy like you on the screen?
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thanks, man. Does anybody have any questions for Jude or myself before we leave off? We do have a question here. So as a married couple, do they combine your credit reading or is it individually? Very good question. So I always say, whether you're married or you're adding a person, your brother, mother, sister, friend, cousin, we always combine the incomes and then we combine the debts, right? So you guys remember we talked about capacity, debt to income. So we would combine the debt, divide that by the income. Now we talk about credit. There's 3 different credit reporting bureaus, right? Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So there's 3. We take the middle one, okay? So let's say Experian is the middle. So one is 700, one is 650, one is 680. We take 680. So we take the middle score from, let's say, the husband, and let's say there's the wife, the same thing. We take the middle score from the wife. So if the husband has 680 and the wife has a 700, for credit decision-making purposes, we have to take the lower of those 2 middle scores. So for credit decision purposes, we would have to take the 680. And you guys would be surprised. I run into circumstances all the time where whether it's the husband or the wife or the husband, one, right, Jude, you could probably attest to this, usually makes the money, but has a bad credit score, and then the other person doesn't make the money but has a good credit score, vice versa. So I have certainly looked at so many different avenues where we keep, let's say, only the wife on the mortgage because her credit score is better and her income can substantiate it. And then we put the husband on what's called title and deed. So therefore, the credit score for the husband does not affect the mortgage qualification or does not affect the potential interest rate. Okay. So a lot of different avenues and facets that we do, or we dive into, let's say in this case, the husband's credit score. And just like I mentioned, figure out what exactly is going on that is allowing the consumer's credit score to be a little low. We tackle it. And then that way we put us in the max buying power that we need to put both of our incomes together. I hope that answered your question, Jermaine. Anybody have any questions before we kind of let us roll out?
Nobody got none for the insurance scope?
I'll tell you guys, I mean, listen, there's all of us, I'm sure, have cars. So there's certainly never a bad idea to get a quote on your car insurance, right? And just like he said, life insurance. We all saw the pandemic 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I'm sure that unfortunately or fortunately put many people in comfortable or uncomfortable situations, right? So that is definitely something, guys. And Jude, not going to talk pricing, but I can imagine it's probably cheaper than going to a dinner date with your wife, right? Or your significant other, and that's your premium, right? For your monthly. So
Yeah, I mean, I just say this one little piece. The most common call that we get per week is someone who's, let's say, in their 50s to 60s or even 40s, and they're asking for insurance, and it seems a little like suspicious, like, why is someone calling at this stage? And you find out that either they're calling for a family member who has been diagnosed and is sick with something,
sure.
or themselves. And it's sad for me, you know, as a professional who does this every day, to take that call when I realize it's too late, because the insurance company will not offer anything at that point, you know? And I'm saying to myself, I wish this was someone who heard my message in their 20s and 30s instead of now. But you know, it is what it is, right? This is what happens. But you know,
And
look,
the older you get, the more expensive it is, obviously, right?
you know, what that goes without saying, right? 'Cause it's rated off mortality and age and health and so forth. But you know, to everyone on this call right now, you know, even if you know, we're not having a dialogue back and forth or questions or anything right now, I would encourage you, please, even if it wasn't with me, see, it's not about me right now, but I would encourage everyone on this call to really digest and evaluate, are they properly protected right now? It's
Yep.
really important. And again, you know, as Abdel said, he's on YouTube and both of us are on Instagram. Even if you want to just go and watch a clip or a video of some of the conversations we have, you know, please, I encourage you. This is all good information that Abdel and myself, more Abdel, this guy is like laser beam sharp, taking time out of the day to gather together content and information for you guys. Use it wisely. I promise you, there's a lot of lenders and insurance guys that are just home sitting down right now, not really caring about what we digest. And I hate to say it, but it's just the truth.
The truth. Cool. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate everybody jumping on, Jude as well. Look forward to catching you guys again in 2 weeks. You guys have our contact info, and I'll catch you guys soon. Have a blessed night.
Thank you.